Now, new details in a shooting on a busy road near Sanford. It left one person dead, multiple others hurt. Shots were fired earlier this morning near Reinhardt Road and County Road 46A, just steps away from an apartment complex there. News 6's Treasure Roberts is live in Seminole County tonight. Treasure, we're learning more about the person who died.
Yeah, we just got those details a few hours ago. The Seminole County Sheriff's Office says 31-year-old Princess Tolliver from Tallahassee was killed in the early morning shooting here at this intersection. They also say multiple people were injured, but won't say who and exactly how many. Seminole County deputies are on the hunt for the person or persons responsible for a deadly shooting at this busy intersection near Sanford. Just before 2:30 Monday morning, a shooting involving two vehicles at Reinhardt Road and County Road 46A left a woman dead and multiple people injured. The woman is 31-year-old Princess Tolliver of Tallahassee.
We're thinking about the victims, again, like praying. We feel terrible about the person that lost their life to something that we don't know all the information, but to something so senseless.
Madison Rivera and her sister-in-law, Donais Rivera, don't live far from where the shots were fired. They described the shooting as shocking and scary.
To hear that this morning was kind of crazy. We would have never expected it to be so close to home.
Madison says it's unnerving, especially because the pair go on routine walks in that area.
That's our route, so maybe we need to find a different one or, start walking and running on a treadmill at home where we hopefully know it's safe.
The sheriff's office says the shooting doesn't appear to be random, but detectives are trying to nail down exactly what happened here. Investigators say a vehicle believed to be involved was recovered Monday afternoon. News 6 captured video of a damaged car and a white truck being towed away from the scene. Neighbors plead to the shooter. Think about the innocent bystanders and families who live nearby.
I feel like this area is filled with families with small kids.
We will continue pressing the sheriff's office for more details about the deadly shooting. And when we do get updates, we'll update you. But in the meantime, they are urging, if you know any information, to please call the sheriff's office or the crime line. In Seminole County, Treasure Roberts getting results, News 6.
They say a night out with friends is supposed to end with laughter, memories, and stories that last a lifetime. But for Princess Aura Tolliver, that night ended with silence, broken only by the sound of gunfire echoing down a dark Florida road. Her father's voice trembled when he heard the news. My baby girl was just visiting. She wasn't supposed to die here. She didn't deserve this. In the dead of night, at an intersection in Sanford, chaos unfolded. Headlights illuminated shattered glass. A van riddled with bullets sat motionless, smoke rising into the cold January air. Inside, 6 women fought for their lives, 5 wounded and 1 gone forever. The dashcam of a deputy's cruiser captured the blur of a suspect vehicle speeding away, a car carrying men who had fired without mercy. In the trunk, ammunition identical to the shells now scattered across the asphalt where Princess took her last breath. She was simply living life, laughing, singing, dancing with friends after concert. She had no feud, no enemies, no reason to be hunted. Yet, in that single moment, she became the face of a tragedy rooted in a violent world she had nothing to do with. The sheriff would later call it a total disregard for human life. But that cold description cannot capture the tears of her friends, the ache in her family's chest, or the haunting question left behind. Why was Princess Tolliver killed? Let's find out.
Welcome to Twisted Crimes Files, where the darkest truths come to light. Stay with us for chilling stories you won't forget, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a case.
On the morning of January 16, 2023, Seminole County deputies responded to what at first sounded like another late-night disturbance. But within minutes, it became clear this was no ordinary call. The victim was Princess Aura Tolliver, just 31 years old, visiting Sanford from her hometown of Tallahassee, Florida. She wasn't a stranger to the spotlight. Friends knew her as Princess Aura, a vibrant influencer whose energy could light up any room. She had spent the night out, celebrating with friends, attending a concert. Hours later, her name would be etched into Seminole County's darkest headlines. The crime itself was brutal, a shootout that tore through a van full of women, leaving Tolliver fatally struck and 5 others wounded. The attack unfolded near County Road 46A and Reinhardt Road, an intersection that would become infamous for one of the most senseless killings in Central Florida. Sanford already carried a reputation. Its streets often whispered about in conversations around crime, feuds, and the rise of local gangs trying to carve out territory. But this shooting was different. It was indiscriminate, and it robbed a family of their daughter for reasons that made no sense to anyone who knew her. As investigators rushed to secure the scene, one mystery question loomed large. Why was Princess, a woman with no ties to gang life, caught in a storm of bullets meant for someone else? This is the story of how a night of music turned into a war zone, and how the search for answers would uncover a feud far bigger than anyone imagined. Long before the headlines and the flashing blue lights, Princess Aura Tolliver was simply Aura to those who loved her most. Born and raised in Tallahassee, Florida, she grew up in a close-knit family that often described her as the spark of their gatherings. From her earliest years, she had a way of drawing people in. The kind of young woman who could turn a quiet room into one filled with laughter. She wasn't a celebrity in the traditional sense, but in her circle, she was already a star. On social media, she carried herself with confidence, posting glimpses of her travels, her friendships, her joys. Her nickname, Princess Aura, wasn't just a play on her name. It was a reflection of how people felt in her presence. She radiated warmth, style, and a magnetic energy that made her unforgettable. Friends describe her as fiercely loyal, the one who would pick up the phone at 2 a.m., no questions asked. Family members talk about her playful side, how she teased her siblings, how she lit up her parents' world with simple gestures, a smile, a hug, a surprise visit home. Beyond her charm, she carried a quiet sense of responsibility. She worked in a civilian role with the Florida State University Police Department, a job that gave her stability but also allowed her to dream of more. She wasn't without ambition. Aura wanted to build her brand, to become an influencer in a way that combined her love for fashion, travel, and people. Her posts often captured more than an outfit or a moment. They told a story of a young woman determined to live fully, to enjoy life in color. And that's exactly what she was doing in January of 2023, living fully. Visiting Sanford was just another adventure, another chance to connect with friends and share experiences. She had no idea her name would soon be forever tied to a tragedy that would shake her family, her city, and eventually the entire state of Florida. Those closest to Princess Aura Tolliver often say her relationships defined her just as much as her ambitions did. She carried her friendships like family, building a circle of trust that was unshakable. The women she surrounded herself with weren't just companions for nights out. They were sisters in spirit, bonded through years of loyalty, laughter, and shared struggles. Her friends recall how she was the glue that held everyone together. When plans fell apart, Aura was the one who reminded people that life was too short not to celebrate. She organized dinners, weekend trips, and late-night talks that often stretched into the early hours. In their memories, she is always smiling, always pulling someone else out of their own darkness with her light. In love, she was cautious but hopeful. Those who knew her best say she longed for stability, for someone who could see beyond the glitz of her personality and value her heart. She wasn't one to overshare every detail of her personal life online, but her posts hinted at joy, birthday shout-outs to special people, cryptic captions that suggested private moments of affection, and snapshots of nights filled with laughter and dancing. Aura's family ties were just as strong. She remained close to her father, who often reminded her to stay careful in a world he knew could be cruel. Her mother described her as her best friend, the kind of daughter who never let distance weaken their bond. Social media painted her life in vibrant colors. Posts of concerts, selfies with friends, videos of car rides filled with music and jokes. To her followers, she was an influencer in the making. To her loved ones, she was much more, a confidant, a nurturer, someone whose presence made the ordinary feel extraordinary. It was within these relationships, these bonds of love and friendship, that Aura found her greatest joy. And it was alongside these very same friends that she would spend her final night, unaware that the celebration they shared would be overshadowed by gunfire before dawn. On January 15th, 2023, the day began like so many others for Princess Aura Tolliver. She was in Sanford visiting friends, eager to enjoy the weekend. The sun dipped, and the city's nightlife came alive. By early evening, Aura was dressed, her hair styled to perfection, her phone buzzing with messages as plans fell into place. Around 9 p.m., she and her circle of friends made their way to the barn in Sanford, a popular venue known for live performances. That night, the headliner was JackBoy, a Florida rapper with a loyal following. The energy inside was electric. The crowd pressed close to the stage, voices chanting lyrics into the air thick with music and sweat. Aura and her friends were part of that sea of faces, swaying and recording snippets for their social media stories. The concert carried on past midnight. Smiles, drinks, and snapshots filled the hours. Aura's last post showed her in the middle of it all, radiant and carefree, singing along with friends who matched her energy. As the night stretched into early morning, the group decided to leave. Just after 2 a.m., they piled into a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van, laughter spilling out as they settled into the seats. Aura sat among women she trusted, women she'd known for years, women who were more than friends. The van pulled away from the venue, merging into the line of traffic heading toward Interstate 4. The streets were quiet, almost deceptively so. Red lights blinked, neon signs glowed faintly, and the hum of engines filled the still night. In those final minutes, Aura was at ease, still replaying the concert in her mind, still basking in the afterglow of music and friendship. What none of them knew was that another vehicle was watching, following, waiting. As the van turned on a county road, 46, a destiny had already been set in motion. Within minutes, a calm ride through the city would transform into an ambush that would shatter every life inside. It was just after 2:20 a.m. when the van eased through the intersection of County Road 46A and Reinhardt Road. The women inside were still replaying the night in their minds when the calm broke in an instant. From the darkness, another vehicle pulled alongside. The silence of the street was shattered by the rapid crack of gunfire. Bullets tore into the van, glass exploding inward, seats ripping apart, screams filling the night. Inside, panic reigned. 5 women collapsed under the weight of their wounds, some crying out, others too stunned to speak. Amid the chaos, one body went still, Princess Aura Tolliver. The laughter that had filled the van moments earlier was gone, replaced by the ringing echo of gunshots and the frantic pleas for help. Deputies who had been nearby didn't need a dispatch call. They had heard the shots themselves. Racing toward the sound, their dashcams captured the chaos unfolding. Headlights illuminating a van riddled with holes, a vehicle fleeing into the night, and the trembling voices of survivors trying to make sense of what had just happened. On the pavement, shell casings gleamed under flashing blue and red lights. The air smelled of gasoline, gunpowder, and fear. First responders worked furiously, pulling survivors out, trying to stabilize them, calling for medics. But for Aura, there was nothing they could do. She had been hit fatally, her life ending there on that cold stretch of road. The scene told a story of precision and brutality. The shooters hadn't just fired blindly, they had unleashed a barrage designed to kill everyone inside. Yet behind the forensic markers and shattered glass, one haunting fact stood out. Aura wasn't the target. She was an innocent caught in someone else's war. In the hours after the shooting, detectives descended on the intersection. The van was towed under heavy guard, its shattered windows and bloodstained seats becoming crucial evidence. Each shell casing was bagged, each bullet hole measured. For investigators, the chaos of that night had to be broken down piece by piece. It didn't take long for a lead to emerge. Just minutes after the gunfire, deputies had pulled over a suspicious car speeding away. Inside, they found ammunition identical to the rounds recovered at the scene. That traffic stop would prove to be the first crack in a case that would soon stretch across counties and into the heart of Florida's rap culture. Over the next weeks, detectives executed more than 120 search warrants. They scoured cell phone records, social media messages, and surveillance footage. The puzzle slowly took shape. The van full of women had never been the intended target. Instead, investigators believed the shooters were tracking the entourage of rapper JackBoy, who had performed at the barn that same night. The motive, they said, was rooted in a bitter feud, a very public dispute between JackBoy and another Florida rap figure, Bill Capri, better known as Kodak Black. Tensions that had played out online and in court spilled into the streets, dragging in players far removed from the music industry. The shooters weren't freelance. They were tied to a local street gang known as ODF, On Top Forever. Sheriff Dennis Lemo later described them as a Crips-affiliated crew trying to make a name for themselves, eager to show power and loyalty by carrying out violence. Aura and her friends were simply in the wrong van at the wrong time. Theories swirled in the community. Was this a message to rival rappers? A desperate attempt by OEF to rise in the ranks of gang culture? Or a tragic overreach by young men chasing notoriety through bloodshed? Whatever the truth, one fact was undeniable. The bullets that killed Aura were fired for reasons she had no part in, reasons that belonged to a feud she never knew existed. When the news reached Princess Aura Tolliver's family in Tallahassee, the world they knew collapsed. Her father's voice broke as he told reporters he could barely comprehend it. His daughter, who had only come to Sanford for a weekend with friends, was never coming home. He called her my baby girl, words that carried the raw ache of a man forced to outlive his child. Her mother's grief was quieter, but no less piercing. She described Aura as her best friend, the daughter who never let a week pass without checking in, the one who made ordinary days feel special. To lose her in such a violent, senseless way was a pain she said she would carry forever. Friends gathered quickly, some driving hours to stand with the family. They spoke through tears, remembering Aura's laughter, the way she would burst into a room with energy that made everyone feel seen. One friend said simply, she had an aura, and that's what we called her. It fit her so perfectly. Now, it feels like that light has been stolen from all of us. The community responded too. Candlelight vigils were held in her honor. At one, dozens stood in silence, holding candles that flickered against the night air, their tears illuminated in soft orange glow. Prayers were whispered. Balloons were released into the sky, rising higher and higher until they disappeared from sight, a fragile symbol of the spirit they hoped was finally at peace. When authorities announced the arrests more than a year later, her family released a letter. It read in part, "The intentional collaborative efforts and diligent pursuit of justice in Princess' death are proof that the good can conquer the evil. Through the success of this investigation, hundreds, if not thousands of lives have been protected." Those words carried gratitude, but beneath them lingered the permanent wound of loss. No number of arrests could restore Aura to her family. No courtroom sentence could fill the empty chair at family dinners, the missing laugh on birthdays, or the absence felt every single day. For them, the fight for justice was never about vengeance. It was about ensuring no one else would ever have to endure what they now carried in their hearts. For more than a year after Princess Aura Tolliver's life was stolen, investigators refused to let the case grow cold. Behind the scenes, Seminole County deputies, state prosecutors, and federal partners pulled every thread they could find. They traced phone calls, combed through social media disputes, and connected vehicles to gang members already under surveillance. Piece by piece, the names behind the gunfire began to surface. By February 2024, Sheriff Dennis Lemo stepped before cameras with a revelation that stunned the community. 13 suspects had been arrested, each accused of playing a role in the ambush that killed Aura and wounded her friends. Their charges were severe. First-degree murder, attempted murder, racketeering, gang promotion. The kind of indictments that spoke to the scale of what prosecutors described as a criminal network hiding in plain sight. Yet even then, one man was missing. Trevon Law, a fugitive wanted for murder, was still on the run. Deputies called him dangerous, urging the public to stay alert. For weeks, his name spread across headlines, his face posted on wanted bulletins. Then, in April 2024, U.S. Marshals and local officers tracked him down. The last suspect was finally in custody. For Aura's family, that moment brought a measure of relief, though never closure. Her father said he was grateful the justice system had not forgotten her. But beneath his words was a sorrow no arrest could erase. The community felt the weight too. In Sanford, where residents had long grown weary of gang violence, the arrests marked a turning point. Leaders spoke about safety, about reclaiming the city's reputation. Neighbors held vigils not only for Aura, but for peace itself, a collective cry that enough blood had been spilled. In January 2025, the case reached another milestone. A grand jury handed down 12 first-degree murder indictments, one for each of the defendants tied to Aura's death. Additional charges of attempted murder reflected the pain of the 5 women who had survived that night. Prosecutors promised to pursue accountability to the fullest extent of the law. But beyond the indictments, beyond the news cameras and official statements, one truth echoed in every corner of the community. Aura's death had not been in vain. Her story, her name, had forced a spotlight onto a violent feud and a reckless gang culture that had endangered countless lives. The arrests, the manhunts, the trials to come, all were reminders that silence would never win. And still, a question remained. Even with the suspects in custody, could justice ever balance the scales for a life so full of promise, taken so violently on a night that should have ended in joy? In the end, the story of Princess Aura Tolliver is not just about a shooting on a lonely Florida road. It is about the fragility of a single night, the way joy can turn a tragedy in a matter of seconds, and how innocent lives are often caught in storms they never asked to enter. Aura did not live a life of violence. She was not tied to the feuds of rappers, nor the ambitions of a street gang trying to make a name for itself. She was a daughter, a sister, a loyal friend, a woman whose smile lit up her father's world, whose presence grounded her friends, whose dreams were still unfolding. Yet, her final moments were stolen by bullets fired in anger, by men chasing notoriety through chaos. The arrests, the indictments, the promises of justice, they are steps forward. But for Aura's family, no courtroom verdict will ever bring back her laughter, her calls home, her presence at birthdays and holidays. Their world is forever changed, even as the justice system marches on. And for the community, the case is a stark reminder of what unchecked violence costs. It is a story about how online disputes can spill into real bloodshed, how gangs seeking recognition can devastate families, and how one moment of recklessness can silence a life that was meant to inspire. But there is also resilience here. In vigils, in the letter her family released, in the determination of law enforcement and neighbors alike, a clear message rises. Aura's death will not be forgotten. Her name will not vanish into the headlines of yesterday. As viewers, we are left with the question, how do we honor someone whose life was cut short so cruelly? Perhaps the answer lies in remembering her not as a victim, but as a vibrant spirit. A woman who loved deeply, who lived fully, and who deserved so much more than what that night gave her. So as you watch, as you listen, don't let her story fade. Share it. Keep it alive. Because every time her name is spoken, every time her story is told, it pushes back against the silence her killers tried to leave behind. For Princess Aura Tolliver, for her family, her friends, and the countless others who stand against senseless violence, we owe it to them to remember. If you've been moved by this story, we ask you, like, share, and subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but so that her voice carries further, her memory burns brighter, and her story reaches those who might choose peace over violence, love over hate. Because for Aura, and for every family still waiting for justice, the fight is not just about one case. It is about the world we leave behind.